Ciao, bentornati! In today's video I'm going to talk about 10 things you need to know before you start studying the Italian language. These things are basic knowledge that will help you learn Italian. If you want to make sure you don't miss any videos in the future from me and you are interested in learning more about the Italian language and culture, subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. The first thing you need to know is that Italian is a transparent language. So a transparent language is a language that's very easy to read and to write because to every grapheme, so any letters written down, corresponds a phoneme, a sound. And in Italian, sounds and the graphical representation of the letters correspond. And there are very few exceptions to this. So Italian is a very easy language to read and to write once you know the Italian alphabet and the sounds. So the Italian alphabet is composed of 26 letters, and this is the international alphabet because there are 21 Italian letters and 5 added letters that you can find in international alphabets, for example in English. Let's see which letters are in the Italian alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. The letter H in Italian is a silent H, so you don't really pronounce it. But the letter H can change some of these sounds. For example, Ch, the letter Ch, can be read Ch or K. When you have E or I, if you put an H in the middle, you will read it K. Ke, Ki. Without it, it's Che, Chi. The same is for the letter G, followed by E, I. Ge, Gi, Je, G. Other interesting sounds are GN, they make Ñ, GL make L. Okay, number 2. The two main and most used verbs and that you need absolutely to know to learn Italian are essere and avere. Essere is to be and avere to have. Essere and avere are used for many different purposes. Essere can be used to say your name, your nationality, where you're from, to describe something with adjectives, professions, what your job is, while avere can be used for possession. So anything you have, it can be an object, physical objects, it can be family relationships, and also to say your age. This is one of the first main differences and one that leads to making mistakes for English speakers. It's because in English you say I am 25, whilst in Italian you would say io ho 25 anni. So you will use avere. I have 25 years. Essere e avere have their own conjugation, so they are irregular verbs. And now let's talk about thing number 3. So the verbs in Italian. Let's say that the verbs in Italian are perhaps the most difficult part of the Italian grammar, but once you get the hang of it, I think you can you know how to use them, and you can use different verbs, and you can easily adapt the rules for every verb you learn in the Italian language. So most of the verbs are divided into 3 groups. Verbs that end in are, verbs that end in ere, and verbs that end in ire. Are, ere, ire. So in a dictionary, for example, you would find these verbs with the are, ere, and ire endings. And this form is called the infinitive, infinito. To use this verb, you need then to remove the ending, are, ere, ire, and you're left with the stem verb, and then you have to add different endings to the verbs to express the tense and the person the verbs refers to. Now they are divided in 3 groups because the verbs in each of these groups follow slightly different rules in terms of the endings that you have to add to the stem. Let's have a look at one in are, for example. Mangiare, to eat. So mangiare will be io mangio, tu mangi, lui, lei mangia, noi mangiamo, voi mangiate, loro mangiano. I eat, you eat, he or she eats, we eat, you eat, plural, they eat. So the first 3 are for singular and the last 3 are plural. So when the person doing the action is one, so I, you, or he or she, or if the people that are doing the action are more than one. For example, we, you, plural, or they. Sometimes you will find essi instead of loro. It's just a variation. Let's see a verb in ere. Leggere, to read. Io leggo, tu leggi, lui, lei legge, noi leggiamo, voi leggete, essi o loro leggono. I read, you read, he, she reads, we read, you read, they read. One verb in ire now. Partire, to leave. Io parto, tu parti, lui, lei parte, noi partiamo, voi partite, loro partono. I leave, you leave, he, she leaves, we leave, you leave, they leave. So you can see the differences there are if the verb ends in are, ere, or ire. Now, the 4th thing you need to know is that there are actually irregular verbs. So there are verbs that don't follow the normal conjugation. So for example, uscire, to go out. Let's have a look. Io esco, tu esci, lui, lei esce, noi usciamo, voi uscite, loro escono. So I go out, you go out, he, she goes out, we go out, you go out, they go out. Can you see how the verb changes completely? So this is because it's irregular. With the irregular verbs, unfortunately, there is no way to predict how the conjugation will turn out. So you just need to memorize them. And there are a few irregular verbs. But be reassured, most of the verbs are actually regular. Now, number 5 is all the different verbal tenses. This is perhaps the most complicated thing. So is having many different tenses. So these are called modi verbali in Italian. Indicativo, congiuntivo, condizionale, imperativo, participio e gerundio. So I invite you to go and read about this if you're interested. I would say that the most commonly used is indicativo. And in the indicativo mode, let's say, you have different tenses. You have many different tenses. I will just mention a few. Again, you can go and look this up because it's a very vast area of the Italian grammar. But the most commonly used that you need to know is presente, so the present tense, passato prossimo, which is the immediate past, and futuro, which is the future. There is also another type of past, imperfetto, which is used quite a lot, but I would say presente, passato prossimo, and futuro are the most useful ones. Obviously, the endings for these verbs, they change. So just quickly, I'll give you an idea of how, for example, mangiare changes when it's in the past tense, passato prossimo. So that becomes ho mangiato, hai mangiato, lui, lei ha mangiato, abbiamo mangiato, avete mangiato, hanno mangiato. I didn't read io, tu, lui, lei, noi, voi, essi o loro, because in Italian you can omit these. So in a sentence you can just say ho mangiato. You don't have to say io ho mangiato. You can remove the pronouns when speaking or writing. So this was I have eaten, you have eaten, he or she has eaten, we have eaten, you have eaten, they have eaten. The future, for example, mangerò, mangerai, mangerà, mangeremo, mangerete, mangeranno. And this is I will eat, you will eat, he, she will eat, we will eat, you will eat, they will eat. The important thing to you to know is that there are different tenses, so that in different situations you can use different tenses. If you're talking about something happening right now, you will probably use il presente. If you're talking about something happening in the past, you will choose one of the past tenses, and something in the future, you will use the future tense. Now let's leave verbs behind and let's have a look at number 6. Number 6 is the Italian nouns. So the words, the nouns in Italian can be masculine or feminine. This is something that you don't have in languages like English, for example, but you have in languages like Spanish, if I'm not wrong, and maybe French. I don't know much French or Spanish, but I know they're similar to Italian in their grammar structures. So it's like every single word is masculine or feminine. La sedia, sedia is feminine, for example, c'è. Muro is masculine. Wall, muro is masculine. Forchetta, fork is feminine. Coltello, knife is masculine, and so on. There is no reason really why one is feminine and one is masculine, they just are. And as a general rule, feminine words end in a and masculine words end in o. Of course, there are some exceptions. For example, the Italian word mano ends in o, but is actually feminine. And also, there are some words in Italian that end in e. Now, these words, unfortunately, there is no way to know if they are masculine or feminine. You just have to know. Fortunately, these are not many, and also the exceptions are not many. So remember the general rule. Feminine ends in a, masculine ends in o. And now to rule number 7. So when you change from singular to plural, you have to change the last letter of the word. So, for example, in English, you add an S at the end if it's plural in most words. Obviously, you have exceptions as well. But for example, hand is one, hands is plural, house, houses. In Italian, you change the final letter. So let's say again that we have masculine and feminine words. Let's have a look at the most common ones. So for example, mela, apple, plural, mele. So normally feminine plural ends in e. Mela, mele. Let's have a look at one in O, so a masculine word. Libro, libri. Book, books. Yeah, so masculine plural normally ends in E. And let's have a look at number 8. We are nearly there. So number 8 is adjectives. Now, adjectives are words used to describe the nouns. For example, casa, bella, a nice house. So the adjectives follow the same rule. If the word casa, for example, is feminine singular, then you will have bella, so ending in a again, to say beautiful. This is one thing that you don't do in English. So you change the ending to match the ending of the noun. If it's libro, there will be bello, a nice book. Libro, bello. Case, belle. Libri, belli. And so on. Number 9. In the same way adjectives follow the ending of the nouns, you have different articles. Articles are the little words that you put before the nouns, and these are two different types of articles. You have definite articles and indefinite articles. Definite articles are, and I always remember these using this little song, il, lo, la, I, ye, le. And these all translate as the. And then we have the indefinite articles that are un, uno, una. And these all translate as a or n. So the definite articles is used when it's a specific thing you're talking about. Il libro che ti ho dato ieri. The book I gave you yesterday. Or un libro di storia. A history book. So the first one is a specific book because it's the book I gave you yesterday. And the other one is a history book. Any history book. Okay. So these are the articles. And there are different rules for the different articles to be used. So if it's masculine, you will use il. If it's feminine, la. If the word starts with a vowel, you will use l apostrophe for feminine and masculine. Lo is used in these cases when the word, the noun, starts with a I or I lunga plus a vowel, GN, PN, PS, S plus consonant, X, Y or Z. In the same way, the plural of this is li. And the same is for the indefinite article, uno. So in all these cases, you use uno. If it's not one of these exceptions, the indefinite articles for masculine singular is un. And the feminine is una. If the word starts with a vowel and is a masculine word, you use un without the apostrophe. But if it's a feminine word and starts with a vowel, then you have to put the apostrophe. Un apostrophe. The last thing you need to know is that, so number 10, there is a formal and an informal way to speak. So obviously this one is interesting because it depends on the situation. So formal means when you want to be very polite, or you don't know the person you're talking to, or you want to keep kind of a distance from them, or respect, or it's a formal situation like a job interview, a meeting, or a business situation. You want to be formal. Informal is what you use with friends, family, people you know, or people younger than you as well, while you will use the formal if you're talking to someone older than you. And there are subtle changes in the way you speak that make your sentence formal or informal. For example, when you use the greetings buongiorno, that's formal. If you say ciao, that's a bit informal. Apart from specific words that are more polite or less polite, or more conversational or more businesslike, there are also differences in the way you use the verbs. For example, if I want to ask someone, how are you? If it's a friend and I want to use the informal way, I will say ciao, come stai? So using the second person. How are you? Okay, stai, from the verb stare. If I want to be more formal, I will say buongiorno, come sta? How are you? So it's still the same translation, but you're using the third person singular. So I'm using lui, lei, sta. I know it all sounds quite complicated, and I hope this video has been quite useful, at least as a starting point, so that you can then go and study Italian more in depth. Let me know in the comments if you find these things quite strange, or are they quite straightforward? Are there huge differences, or are there any similarities with your language? Let me know if there is anything you would like me to explain more in detail. Again, if you don't want to miss any future videos, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!